Hi Adam, you're a great fan of Jean Dubuffet. Tell us a little bit about your fascination for this artist.
Well, I don't know. I think it started when I was growing up. There was a book on the shelf in my home called The History of Art, and it was filled with a bunch of mostly like kind of Renaissance and post-impressionist paintings, except for two artists that stood out. One was Jean Dubuffet. It was a picture of like a bicycle that was drawn very crudely, this like sort of caveman bicycle. And I remember like looking through the history of art and just seeing this bicycle, and it was like very punk, you know, and I was thinking like, who drew this? It looks like crazy, you know, and like the other was actually George Rouault. So anyway, so that's how I was led to Jean Dubuffet. It was through this very common American book that's like on, you know, on the shelf of a lot of homes.
You draw quite a lot of elements from his work, like the strong lines and the
Yes.
sort of color fields.
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, I have certainly like was taking a lot of inspiration from seeing his stuff. And the first time I was exposed to his sculpture was at the Pompidou. They had a room there of sort of kind of like that one over there. It was a black and white room, and I remember being attracted to it because it looked like it was a drawing that was a sculpture. And I think, you know, I'm a great big fan of drawing. I like to press hard with like you know, a crayon or something and do like an expressive, like kind of bold line. And I really feel like commonality with Dubuffet in that way, you know. And so I'm also attracted to sort of like weird, rough, you know, kind of inaccurate mediums like paper mache or things like that, because I feel like when I draw on it, there's sort of like an imperfection in it, and it kind of is like very forgiving, and I don't know, I like that. So yeah, so I set out to make sculptures that look like drawings as well.
It has something very playful, like the set we just saw yesterday from the Aladdin movie. The kind of something very static and just constantly moving. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I think like I kind of want people to feel like they're being in a cartoon or a video game, you know, when they go into like looking at least the sculptures that I did for the Beyeler show. I think like that's kind of the aim, and I try to like, I think, be entertaining with art as well as like, you know, try to express what feelings that I have about the world.
Like Dubuffet, you use quite a lot of seemingly naive elements. What's your interest in that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess I also, you know, I'm coming at it as a musician coming into doing visual art, so I think like I have a physical approach to drawing, and like, you know, maybe it's like similar to playing guitar or something. Like I like to have it be physical, and as well as I'm attracted to folk art and kind of outsider art as well. Like especially like I feel with the Aladdin movie, it's sort of like a kind of like a piece of like a giant quilt that was made like a community project. I see it as a big like kind of quilt, you know. So, but also, you know, I'm just thinking I like identify with a wooden aesthetic, you know, as like a folk singer. So I think like you know, that that kind of doing like kind of with simple things, like making something that's complicated and almost, I think, would speak to like an adult mind, you know, is something that like kind of appeals to me. Like I like to sort of strip down things. I feel like my artwork is like intended to communicate often with adults, but you know, I think that the way I try to express it is like maybe kind of as the instinct of more like a child.
Your last big piece, like we mentioned before, was Aladdin, the movie where you made the music for. You actually made the set, the props, the sets all yourself. You acted in it. What was the big challenge, and what is maybe the benefit of combining all these different layers?
I was trying to write the songs and the script at the same time, and so I had a bunch of lines lying around on the floor, you know, and I just sort of like picked through them, and it was hard to know what's a song and what's a line from the movie. So sometimes it was both, you know.
Why Aladdin? What's the story?
Well, you know, I was kind of attracted to it as like a materialist fairy tale or something. You know, it's sort of like, well, I think a lot of these things are sort of like embedded in your, you know, it's like your dreams don't really pay attention to copyright. That's sort of like a theme of the movie in a way. Like, for example, like when I was really young, I had a wet dream about Super Mario Brothers. You know, like I remember going to sleep. In my dream, I won Super Mario Brothers. They introduced me to the princess, and I ejaculated. So I feel like for somebody like me that this happens to, this I think explains like why I'm making the kind of stuff that I make. But you know, but so far as like Aladdin itself, like I don't know. I think like it would seem like maybe we could reassess the symbols in it, because you know you have a lamp. It gives you unlimited wishes, let's say, and where do you put all these things? You know, on our planet, there's no room. You know, it's like this sort of fairy tale about acquiring unlimited material wealth. And I thought like we could take a look at that, you know, in the state that we're in of the planet, sort of like, do we want to be, we want to live the same Aladdin as before, or do we have like a new Aladdin to live? You know, I mean, I saw us as almost like all Aladdins, you know, that kind of the lamp became, in my Aladdin, I chose to use a 3D printer to represent the lamp. So the lamp prints out kind of an analog version of the internet. And this analog version of the internet is like handmade. It's like kind of made out of paper mache. So it's sort of representing a sort of like weird technological nightmare with very handmade opposite of technology means. So it's sort of like a movie about technology that's like made with anti-technology. It's like the most anti-technology movie ever.
Yeah, I like these contradictions of like fancy little props, and they make quite cool things, and then this really sort of basic materials. Yeah,
it's funny, like, you know, you kind of make these proxy objects, like, you know, you find yourself making like a laptop, and then you like, you know, it becomes like, you almost like, I would almost compare it to like, let's say, when you look at an ancient Egyptian tomb and like they have a bunch of objects that are like given to the deceased like in his tomb so that he'll like have them in the afterlife. You know what I mean? And like I feel like that's sort of like what making a world out of paper mache is like. You sort of like make one of everything, and like you hope that like on your adventure you're going to have everything that you need.
If you had Aladdin's lamp, what would your biggest or maybe most surreal wish be?
Well, someone asked me this yesterday, so I had a chance to think about it. But I mean, I definitely would wish for I want a song museum to have, where I could like have exhibits of different songs I like that like I could like kind of curate as like a museum. And I would like to do I'd like to design my own amusement park, and like kind of I guess the Aladdin version of Disney. Wait, the Aladdin version of Disney. Oh, that's kind of weird because they made one, but it's different. You know what I meant? Yeah. Well, you know, I actually think about Disney World sometimes. Kind of like, it's funny to think of it in the future, like almost like ancient Rome, like people like kind of like going around Disney World like with like a tour guide, and it's like a kind of like ancient, you know, like it looks like the Colosseum, and like you know what I mean? Like it's funny to think of it as sort of like ruins or something. Well, the other thing I was going to say about Dubuffet, I think, is a commonality, and you know, it's hard to know sometimes when you really like, you just kind of identify with somebody since you're really young, and you know, you make all kinds of different decisions in your life, and then sometimes you come back to the old ones, and you know, you find you find that you're like still in tune with something that when you were younger you also liked. You know, maybe you like go away from it and come back to it and stuff. And but I was going to say, because in reference to the Cuckoo Bazaar and like the style called like a or loop, that Dubuffet kind of made a system to draw it, and it's like I don't know, just maybe to tell the people about it. It's sort of like he had I think like something like 4 or 5 different techniques to make this art. It's like it's either like red lines that are, you know, like horizontal, or blue lines, or filled in red or filled in blue or white with black outlines. And so that's like the only rules. And I think he made it by like those kind of like bureau pens that you can get, just the simple like office pens. So it's kind of like probably something that he invented when he was like doodling on a notepad or something, is what people think. But anyways, I feel like for my own artwork, I did make a system to, at least in the Aladdin movie, you'll see it's made out of 8 symbols. So something like that. Everything is made out of reductions of these simple facial features of a few cartoon characters. Big Bird's eye, Garfield's ear, Garfield's cheek, Garfield's eye, Elmo's eye. That's pretty much it. The whole movie is made out of that, just these cubic reductions of those like whatever, few things. And so, and again, I think I'm attracted to that as well, you know, making a whole world out of like 6 shapes, something like that, 8 shapes, I don't know.
Awesome. I hope you get the chance to make that fun park. I think be the first one I'd go to.
Thank you. Yeah, maybe in Las Vegas for adults.
So when is the movie out?
I think it's going to come out in May. I don't know yet, but I think that I'll release it in May, and the album that accompanies it will come out in April.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.